space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim. With me, of course, Sir Admiral Elliot.
Happy New Year and welcome back.
And Dr. Squee.
Dragon 2024.
And we're back for the new year to talk about a new season of Deep Space Nine, the final season of Deep Space Nine. But don't think that means we're towards the end of the Dominion War, because nearly every episode of this season.
Yeah, there's about 3 episodes we won't be talking about directly in this little arc.
Roundabout.
And to be fair, you've got to be careful even there, because like something I noticed about these 2 episodes, that even though they're both Dominion War, just watching one of them doesn't work on its own. You need to watch the 2 of them together.
Oh, you do, yeah. It's very much a 2-parter.
Do you know what I love about it as well? Just talking generally before we get into it, I love the fact that you've got these last season opener. Loads of people would have felt pressured to do a big kind of like space battle, explosions, everything. It was such a wonderful character piece, and you were never bored for a minute. Like it was as good as having a huge battle scene, because it's just.
I mean, we did get a battle.
The character, yeah, but you know what I mean. It's like that was kind of incidental, really. The battle was the minor part.
Yeah.
The major part was all about kind of like how much these people care about each other, why they're doing it, why later on the stakes matter, because they were there for each other. You know, I feel like that was really the theme of these 2.
Yeah, definitely. And the episodes we're talking about, of course, Image in the Sand, and I always forget the name of the second one, Shadows and Symbols.
I've had Linda Carlisle in my head all week, because it's just images in the sand. I just immediately think circling the sand, and I've had that song going on in my head all week.
God, watch out for next week's episode. Walk like a Bajoran.
With you. Oh, no, it's Dax who clasps her hands behind her back. I was trying to make a joke about the way Kira walks, and it didn't work. It fell flat on its face. Never mind. Speaking of Kira, though, so we start off this episode, and Kira has now been promoted to a colonel and has the special colonel's haircut.
Can we just like start on this opening scene, because it's like, I do think it's really nice the way they do it. So they naturally do in dialogue. It's like, hello, Colonel. It's like, oh, stop calling me that. It's kind of really cutesy. But Jesus, I've realized what it is, because I think I think I'm going to notice this all the way through watching their episodes. When they're just naturally being a couple like that, they work really well. The second they say something cutesy, it breaks it completely.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, this line which they do here is like, now with some kiss, changed my life. It sounds so artificial. It just sounds
it does.
Whereas they are best when they're just naturally being together.
Yeah,
it's effortless. It should be like that. And it's like, I thought it was Odo, really, but I think actually it's Kira who feels more awkward, because later on there's a bit where she's meant to touch her hand. She's meant to touch his hand, and it's supposed to like, she goes, sort of like almost just pats it and then lets it go. It's like,
it's the chemistry's weird. Like, obviously they have great chemistry together as actors, because the interplay between the characters has always been brilliant, but playing the romance side of it, we've said this before, but there's something that just doesn't quite gel.
Well, let's look at it. One of them's a warrior, the other one's a really private person. So why not play it like that? That they're just naturally comfortable together. They're not. Neither of them seems naturally apt to do lines like that. You know, like
no.
There was some kiss changed my life. It's just not their way. Look, I know some people have different relationships to how they are privately, but it just doesn't work for them. Just have them being themselves, but as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you see that a bit. You do see that later on with it.
Yeah, you do.
In these, and they're brilliant when they're just being a couple, and you've got Kira lounging on top of Odo, and they're talking, and he's
that
works.
Yeah, I mean, that worked.
It feels like the writers, like either the writers or the studio gave them notes to say, it's like, well, we should have a couple of coupley lines here. Don't just let them be together. They're great, you know.
Yeah, and the characters are that sort where because we've seen Odo in relationships and Kira in relationships before, and they've not been like that in the other relationships. So why make them do it here?
I mean, Kira with Burial was pretty bad, but I think that's just because Burial was really bad, and anything he touched became bad. Like,
I mean, it kind of works when you've got Worf and Dax, because you could give Dax her cutesy kind of like line. She was apt to have those.
that worked.
And he then was emboldened to say something really kind of macho and cool. And like he always seemed really pimp when he was with her. And like, but it worked with his character. With those two, just they don't suit cutesy. They just don't.
No,
it's just
they do not. The other thing I noticed a lot in this episode is, I know you've got to establish what the passage of time is, but everybody seems keen to remind us that it's 3 months later. Like, that's been going on for 3 months. Captain Sisko's been gone for 3 months. So I think this is 3 months after the previous episode.
I think what you've got there is, like, part of this is very early on, where you had this sort of episodic thing happens in TV. So they were trying to instill like, there's been a gap, but the story is taking on from there. But,
I think,
and sometimes you have, and we've had some series of DS9 where the opener of the new season has literally almost been the following day.
That's what I was going to say.
So they've had
TNG,
to sort of,
it always was.
So they've had to do that and sort of go, no, there has been a passage in time. Sisko hasn't just got back to Earth and he's coming straight back. He's been...
But I'd agree with Jim. You could have sort of said it once, maybe twice, and then just left it. But it was,
I think
it became noticeable.
I think we notice it more now than we would have at the time, because at the time it was something that you probably did need.
Maybe,
we told us the audience. That's my point in it.
I think you might be right.
This is like an early on episodic. We used episodic TV now, but you didn't get that at this time.
And also, there's a difference between watching it casually and watching it paying attention, like we do when we're going to be talking about it on a podcast. So you do pull these things out, but I like the introduction of the cult of the Power Wraiths. We'll put a pin in that because they might be important later on in the season. But I do like this idea that they're cut off from the gods, so people are turning to alternate religions. That's quite a meaty idea to get stuck into there.
And you could apply it to sort of like some of the modern stuff of people where religions have... maybe our relationship with religions has changed. That's all I'm going to say. But it means you wonder if like that's led to some of the kind of like in America, like some people treating Trump like a god, like a messiah, like, you know, and some people treating these kind of political figures as if they're religious figures. It's interesting how that kind of changes. And even Obama you can say the same about.
There aren't any characters in Deep Space Nine who are a little bit like Trump and want to be treated like a god. And we'll put a pin in that as well, because we might come on to that later on. But,
there must be guys out there who maybe have fallen out of favor with the elite on Cardassia, but I don't see any link between them and Trump. No. I don't see anything. He's just trying to make Cardassia great again. That's all he's trying to do, people.
And so I like, and Bajor's always been presented as a monotheistic society. Like we've certainly never been told of any other religions on Bajor, and the idea that this is creeping in now, and to the point that it's active on the station, is interesting.
And I'd say, to your point, actually, it's like, I mean, what I realized watching this back, doing this arc, is how much they pepper in the power rates. You don't really notice until this series. Like when I first watched it, I would have said, oh yeah, I think they mentioned power rates before, but like that, it's quite well kind of peppered in, but it's so subtly done that it builds very naturally to this.
And I suppose this is the other thing as well, is like, up until this point, the power wraiths have been a myth. You know, when we first hear about them, Keiko talks about them as, you know, people talk about the power wraiths in the fire caves as if it's like a bogeyman story of the American the boogeyman.
Satan and hell.
But there's been, you know, there has been absolute proof the prophets exist by the wormhole. But until this last year in universe, there's not been any proof of power raids. But all of a sudden, you've had one taking over Jake and battling someone on the promenade. And then even if they covered that up, there's the sight of them flying into the wormhole and shutting it down. So
Yeah.
if this was like an underground sort of cultish religion, it's no wonder they've got emboldened, because they can now go, well, look, you saw our gods kill your gods and shut the wormhole down 3 months ago,
Yeah.
in fact.
I also, just bringing in, like, I love leading into it, the way they show Cisco back in his dad's kitchen, because they do a really wonderful job of, they show that he's distant, that he is different from how he is before. There are a few moments of levity where it's like he still pals around with Jake. I kind of like they added that element. They didn't just make it simply he's just in a trance or anything. It's like he's still being himself, and he's still able to connect with his son and everything, which is kind of a nice touch. I think in lesser writers' hands, they might have just made him so like he's in a zombie state until he's awakened.
I think they've actually gone to him just chill at the piano, because
Yeah.
it is very much on that piano, like he's in Meet the Captains when
he
Captain's interviewing him, and he's just
he goes full Avery Brooks in this one, in terms of just tinkling the ivories, not a care in the world.
I'll tell you, it's between the captains and what they leave behind, what we left behind, that really made me on a new level. Like, I always appreciated Avery Brooks's acting, but it's like, when you think of it in terms of jazz, which I always now, whenever I watch one of his performances, I think of it as a musical performance in acting, and it's like it's
slalom.
Well, yeah, but it's like it is. But it's like it's, if you think of it as freeform jazz as opposed to like classical acting, it's like you get the improv kind of wild side of acting that he goes towards.
Yeah.
It's so much more enjoyable on a completely different level. You see what he's actually doing, and even when it doesn't quite work, because anyone who swings for the fences like he does, because he gives such big, beautiful performances, you're gonna miss sometimes. It's the kind of Nicolas Cage of it.
I was just about to say the same thing.
Yeah, when he hits it's out of this world. It is the best acting ever. When he misses, it can be spectacularly funny. It just can be. But it's like, I just always appreciate him more because I see what he's doing now. And it's like, yeah, having him actually playing the piano, you kind of like get to tie those worlds together a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other plot then that's introduced, because there's 3 strands to this 2-parter. So we've got Cisco's quest, we've got Kira and the politics on the station with the Romulans, and we've got Worf. And we start off with Worf just seeing him on the Defiant. He's unhappy doing convoy duty. But we come to find out it's much, much deeper than that.
Yeah, and this whole plot is just wonderful. Having the kind of history between him and Miles, even though it's kind of weird, like it seemed like slightly lazy writing when he comes in and goes like, "Hey, remember Lieutenant Barclay?" It feels like he's talking to you. Yeah. You remember those episodes?
I think it's also that he's just trying to pin Worf down, because Worf is trying to push him straight off. So
yeah, but it's what he goes
coming out. He's saying that, and that is a nod to the audience to remind us that these both served together on the Enterprise, that they have got a history beyond DS9.
I know, and it is slightly kind of like anything really I'm saying about these episodes, because I think they're wonderful, is kind of nitpicking, but it's like, you know, just watching it back, I just think it's like, it just doesn't feel like very natural. It just like, remember Lieutenant Barclay?
There's certain things in it, and they're done playing to the audience to remind you of stuff, and that's when it's a bit awkward. It's like how they keep having to, like we said, how they keep having to go, by the way, that was 3 months ago. That was 3 months ago. Do you remember? And you've got Worf and O'Brien. Do you remember when we served on the Enterprise with this character that you'll all remember if you were fans?
Yeah, it just feels clunky in a rewatch, I guess. You know, at the time, like you say, I probably wouldn't have even noticed it.
I think a lot of it is because these when it's these parts, they're actually talking to us as the audience.
Yeah, exactly. So you remember
they're not breaking the fourth wall. But they're doing it so that, we immediately put together, these two have a history before DS9 together.
I guess I'm just like watching it with a modern sensibility, where I think we've got a little bit better at, you know, the writers have got better at doing exposition a bit more subtly than this was a little in your face, kind of like on a rewatch.
But it does mean, because Worf's feeling out of sorts, we get another song from Vic Fontaine, and I don't mind it this time. It doesn't feel as intrusive as sometimes it does, and it works to further the plot in this one, whereas I think it was last episode, wasn't it, where he sang the song for Bashir and Quark, and it just felt like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
Actually,
why are we doing
this seems like all over a better version of that storyline, because that seemed a little bit forced. It seemed like they needed a B storyline, so they put that in.
Yeah,
they had them retreading stuff they'd already really faced, whereas this one, they've lost their friend, and they play
exactly.
They've lost their love interest.
Yeah.
But of course, Quark being grabbing his goes like, well, she should have been my wife, but that's just Quark being Quark.
Yeah, that's Quark.
But you've got this. This is like, yeah, we loved her, but we loved her as a friend, and we've got just as much right to mourn her as you have.
And it's beautiful. And the way they play that, the way they play Wolf's Jealousy, the way they have them initially talking about it. And it's like, yeah, like Bashir goes like, well, you didn't like Sue O'Brien, you didn't know her like I did. Like, this was my friend. I'm going to be there. And he goes, well, you know what that means? I'm going to be the idiot who's going along with you. Because they're and it's like, it is just so beautiful. And again, it's just a beautiful character piece, these 2 episodes.
Well,
yeah.
Like we've said before, though, the friendship between O'Brien and Bashir is probably the best romance that's ever been shown on TV.
Amen.
Their friendship.
And I think it just leads in, again, as I said at the top of the episode, it's like everything they put into character development here adds so much when they're like in the last episode, you don't have so much time for character development. They have wonderful character moments, but it's all about the driving plot. But because you've already put in the groundwork, that emotion's heightened so much, because you think back to this episode where they're going out to celebrate their friend and they're becoming closer as a team than they've ever been before. Even like, I mean, it made me kind of wish there was an episode with just Worf and Quark. That's the only thing I think.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a very minor sort of subplot, not even a subplot. We just sort of touch base with Damar and Wayoon every so often. And
this is quite interesting, because like Damar is obviously the head of the Cardassian now, but this is where you're starting to see him drinking.
Yes.
And this plays into things that he's drinking, and we think he's just drinking because he can, and it's actually he's drinking because he's really upset.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I loved it, because didn't we also have a bit with him drinking previously when Damar's daughter died, and then he was like, in the back, and he kind of sort of held himself back. Now he's starting to slip back on it. It's almost
we have had him drinking, but to the point that Wayoon is noticing it now.
Yeah, he's constantly drinking.
That perhaps unknown to Damar, that puts him on very shaky ground, because he did not get there on his merits. He got there because Ducat didn't work out as a figurehead for the Dominion, and they thought, right, we'll just go to the next guy and you can be the figurehead. But it's like, if you get this wrong, you are disposable, and they need someone to front the Cardassian side of it, but that someone definitely doesn't have to be Damar.
And I think also to sort of like, because I feel like there isn't too much to come back to with this. The one thing I will say is there's a later line where Wayne says like, oh, typical Romulans, you can always trust them to be duplicitous. And it's like, it's so telling that he's so self-unaware, because they sell out every ally they have for the next ally which comes along. And it's sort of like, I think it kind of sets up on that by saying it very subtly, though, that like he doesn't, I think it's their lack of self-awareness as the Dominion that really is their undoing. And it's so nice.
I don't think it's a lack of awareness. I think it's that they've got such a superiority complex, because they have rules.
There is a lack of self-awareness in a way. They think they're perfect. That they're not duplicitous. They're just sensible in going to whoever's most beneficial to them next.
I think it's also because they're being genetically created to believe the founders are gods.
Yeah,
that they can't actually envision anything that they're doing, because it's all coming down from the founders. It can be wrong in any way whatsoever.
Yeah,
everything is always right that they do.
Yeah,
they also can't comprehend that other races don't immediately fall in line to that. It's like, well, the Cardassians must think the founders are gods as well, so we won't get any trouble from them.
Yeah, and I think there is a side to it where Wayne, because it's until the founders, every now and again, they the female founder usually bitch slaps him down and says no, you're wrong. And then he goes, oh my God, it's almost like, oh my God, I wasn't perfect for a second, because usually I'm quite perfect. I think he really thinks he's perfect until the founders say something different. And he goes, well, that bit was wrong. But other than that, I'm
Yeah.
golden, you know.
Yeah, it's a funny power structure with all of them, isn't it? One thing that they do just sort of sweep under the carpet, though, is they go, oh, well, actually, closing the wormhole has helped us. Why? Shh. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
We'll run with that.
I think they're sort of looking at it because it's demoralised.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's
I
almost.
think they're looking at it as a demoralisation. So they're looking at it as sort of that other side of the wall, which is like the psychological side of it.
I think it's kind of like, you know, I think they're trusting us to remember what Ducat said at the end of the last series. So it's like it's like Ducat was right, it did help us. I think we're then meant to remember that he said, and maybe even there was a longer bit of scene here and they maybe cut a few lines and it just, you know,
It does make you...
it sort of feels like they're saying it's like he was right in saying that they would be demoralized, like Elliot's saying.
Yeah, like it does make you wonder, though. Like, I've not really thought about this before, but you know, at the end of this episode, spoilers, Cisco reopens the wormhole, and it makes you wonder if Starfleet sort of pulled him in and went, right, so it got closed, meaning our enemy that we're at war with couldn't get any reinforcements ever, and you've reopened it. Like, oh, well done. Thank you. Now go back to the station. Oh, what a good job.
Now go. I think you're better off at your dad's. Go clean another couple of sacks of clams.
Yeah, like
well,
now...
I'll save it, but I sort of want to get into this with the way Starfleet treat the Bajorans while Cisco's away, but that's more part 2.
Right.
Because I think that links into what you're saying, is all I'm saying. Yeah.
So back to Cisco then. So we find out he has this vision and he sees this woman's face. And Jake conveniently has seen a photograph of this woman fairly recently while he was clearing out his granddad's stuff, which, you know, fair enough. And I do like Brock Peters is acting when he's like, oh, where did you get this? No, she's no one, okay? Never ask me about her again, ever. Ugh.
He is wonderful in this episode, like in this 2-parter. I just love the fact that straight from the beginning, he's doing this whole shim-sham about like, hey, you need to try this dish, and if it's good enough for her, it's good enough for you. And it's like, it's just lovely.
Yeah, he's great.
And it also kind of echoes very well in the second part when he's distracting. He's going, it's like, oh, the today's special is the clam chowder. No, sorry, that was yesterday. It's actually, you know, it sort of sets it up nicely. But whenever he's doing that, it's just the family dynamic between those 3 generations of Cisco is beautiful every time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It feels like a real family.
And it's like, if I may, like, I feel a bit odd us 3 white guys talking about this, but it's like there are a lot of bad stereotypes of black families and black single male parents being kind of abandoning their kids. There is an awful stereotype about that. So to show a 3-generation strong male lineage where they are so close, I think kind of breaks down those kind of bad stereotypes. So I think it was kind of important, but it was so lightly done. They don't shove it down your throat. It's just
it's not shoved down your throat. It's not banging your face. It just happens, and it's this is what it is. Just
RTD recently said about Doctor Who, it's like he goes like just putting in a trans character just as Donna's daughter. You don't need to signpost. You don't need to do it much. Just having it there normalizes it. And if you normalize it, just in the kids watching it now will just grow up going, oh yeah, that's just normal as it is. And I think that's what Star Trek did so well here with that family.
Yeah, it did, and it did it to the extent that you didn't realize it was anything unusual for TV at the time. But it historically, we've seen that it was. It's quite weird from 2024 eyes to say the fact that we've got a scene with 3 members of a family and none of them are white was progressive, but it was at the time, and that's how much the world's changed, And
it almost seems weird to say that it's progressive, that it was 3 men, but 3 black men, who are like the 2 of them are single male parents. That is kind of important to the kind of, I'd say, bad stereotypes of the past.
Well, we find out why Joseph was a single parent, which was he unknowingly got married to a Bajoran god, and then she left him. So what we're presuming happened here, and
Well,
it's sort of
what
confirmed
she's
at the
sa-
end
is that she's possessed an Earth woman.
yeah.
Can I also say, come on, look, I get it. I get why he's kind of hurt. She was like, she fell in love with her. Then she suddenly changed to being a different person. He was very hurt. But still, though, you've boffed a god. You're going to tell someone, aren't you? It's like, hey,
Well, he
shagged a
didn't
god.
know.
I got
He
to
didn't
keep
know
him
he
there.
boffed
No,
a god,
until
did he?
now.
Yeah,
Now he
sorry.
knows.
Now he knows. Now he can start bragging about it. He had known for 40 odd
Yeah.
years.
that-
You're right.
when
right.
they
The
get
rest of his
back,
life,
that-
he's there going, it's like, and by the way, once I fucked a god. I just
No,
asked you what the specials
he's not to put
are.
up,
I just asked what the specials are, man.
He's not to come to Cisco's the God Destroyer.
Yeah. Just got
Yeah,
picture of
that-
him going,
That photo that he was like, no, never speak of it again. That's getting framed, and it's going up on the.
and I've seen everything. Sorry, I know that's Patrick Stewart's, but come on.
But yeah, she buggered off to Australia, and then she died basically. And we do learn though that he wasn't a single father for too long. He met someone else who Cisco believed to be his mother, and
yeah, it's been brought up by another woman, which is fair.
Yeah.
And he's been that young enough that he hasn't remembered his.
yeah,
original
absolutely.
And you can even say that's kind of progressive, just to talk about adoption, talking about kind of someone who is, Cisco's whole arc really in the end is about kind of like his birth parents versus the parents who raised him. And it's like he is part wormhole alien at the end of the day. And it doesn't make anyone lesser for it. I think.
No, that's it. Like you have
really
that bit where
it's like this with the Cisco, because we've established that the wormhole aliens, the Bajoran gods, however you want to look at them, see time differently, and they've actually gone out of the way to make sure that Cisco is conceived.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like I know
they know that if he's conceived, he's going to be in the place he needs to be later on. But they actually go out the way to make sure that yes, he will be.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say also, it's like, I mean, something I always loved about Superman. I know it's going off on tangent, but I always loved the fact that he was raised by the parents who raised him, but he also had respect for his birth parents because he gets like Jor-El through the crystals and everything, and he gets kind of like it doesn't lessen anyone in that equation. Whereas the new version, like Man of Steel, the thing which always annoyed me was because he sort of like the second that his birth dad turns up, he basically just goes, "Yeah, well, I can let my dad die." It's sort of like feels like he turns his back on his birth parents the second that his original parents kind of come into the story.
Yeah, and the whole thing about Superman is Superman always had mum and dad, and they raised him, and then he had mother and father. And they were his parents.
And he loved them all. And it didn't have to be any differentiation. Yeah. But anyway, it's like in this, I like the fact that it's like when Cisco finds out about his birth mum, he kind of honors that while still honoring his mum who raised him. And I just think that's like a nice way of doing it, if they can do it.
Yeah, like he says, I loved Mama and nothing would have changed it. And we find out it was Joseph's decision not to tell him because he says, yeah, that's exactly what she said. So she obviously didn't have a problem with him knowing either. And it was Joseph who didn't want Cisco to know about Sarah.
Because I think there are some earlier, less well-told versions of this story where it's like, in some literature, when the birth parents turn up, or some TV shows, when the birth parents turn up, they're kind of like, oh, well, I've learned I've got birth parents. They're more important than these people who raised me. And I think this is a more deftly told version of it.
Definitely. So back on the station then. Now, there's a bit with Worf that I really enjoy this just because it's so... It sort of signifies the way Klingons are with each other. Like, Worf's there on the holodeck. The holosuite, sorry, doing his batleth exercises. And Martok just comes in and goes, defend yourself, Worf! And starts attacking. So that's like the equivalent of where you go in pub and your mate's there and you go, you all right, mate? But the Klingon version of that is just give him a little heads up and swing at them straight away.
Because I think if this was in any public forum, Martok could not be seen to lose to a subordinate, whereas like they are like their blood, their family, they can have a tussle and Wolf can win. Behind closed doors, that's fine. That's honorable still. Whereas like
he couldn't allow that to happen in the open. Because then Worf would outrank him in the family.
Again, I don't think it's signposted, but I feel like it's there. You know, I think the writers did intend this, so I think that's really nice.
I think so, definitely. And we find out then. So what's got to happen is Worf, to get Jadzia into Sto-vo-kor, has got to win a battle in her name, which gives us a nice little subplot where Martok and Worf and Bashir and O'Brien and Quark can go off and blow shit up while we've got everything else going on.
And can I ask, is it just me who thinks that, like, when Quark comes in and goes like, God, I'm just saying they can vary up the menu a bit. It's like, is Guck all they can serve? It's like, I bet he's right that there was a few other Klingons who were going, it's like, yeah, actually, if you try Ferengi tube grubs, pretty fucking tasty, you know.
Yeah,
I could imagine the Klingons actually liking tooth grubs.
Exactly.
Yeah, I bet they would.
I think Quark's actually on something on this one point.
And meanwhile, there's this business with it. Like, it escalates, doesn't it, as it goes
Well, it
along.
escalates into the second episode, doesn't
it? And it starts with, we're going to station Romulans on the station, which we talked about last season. Like we said, that'd be a good idea. The problem is, it's never consistent. We've had a Romulan before who came with the Defiant and then disappeared. And now we've got, we're going to have a Romulan station in it. So, wait a minute, but we also want to put a garrison on the station. And we want to put a hospital on this planet. But,
we notice you've got a moon. Can we establish a lifeless moon? Can we establish a hospital for troops coming back from the front line? Which is perfectly reasonable if you're establishing a moon for the hospital, and it makes a lot of sense.
But that's totally not what they're doing.
Let me kind of throw in as well. Like, I know we're going to get into the Esri of it all in a minute, but wouldn't you have rather, like, just throwing out there, and this is no insult to Nicole de Beer, because she was wonderful and everything, but would you rather have all the Esri Dax stuff, which seems kind of forced? You kind of got to get to know her in one season when you're kind of wrapping everything else up. Would you rather that, or would you rather have had a Romulan subplot where they're on the station and you've got to work with your enemies? I think that would be more interesting myself.
Yeah, I think that would have been
if we're talking about like footage on the episodes, and then it ties more into the plot. Whereas,
I mean, I think
so much to introduce Esri here, which just
There's a lot of episodes giving over to Esri early on.
Yeah,
which is obvious to make her an established character in a long-running series in its final season.
And that's the thing, and it has to be front-loaded in the season because we need the second half of the season for the arc plot. Spoilers for what's coming up on the podcast. We are jumping over the Esri episodes. The Esri episodes that have no bearing on the Dominion War. Well, that gets us nicely to the introduction of Esri.
We meet Esri taking over from Dax.
There you go.
Who's that hunk in the middle of the other Daxes?
I know some of us did have had the Daxes hanging off us.
And
I almost said something really rude for a second there, but I'm not gonna.
So we get Sisko's going to begin his quest. Joseph and Jake are going with him, and just as they're about to leave, new Dax turns up, and that sees us out of the episode. And I do think Nicole de Beer's great. I think the way the character's written is good.
Yeah.
I like the new spin on it that Dax was always had a very cool head and was very. She was probably, when I say Dax, I mean Jadzia Dax. I'll start differentiating. But she was probably one of the characters who was most at peace with themselves and happy in their own skin and knew exactly who they were and had no qualms about it. Whereas Esri is the opposite of that. And we find out reasons for that straight away, that she wasn't meant to be joined. And she's been given, it sounds like they basically just give her a pamphlet and said, right, you're a joined Trill
it sounds
now.
Like it's not even being a Trill doctor who's performed the surgery, and it's not like, look, the symbiote's going to die. You're a Trill. You're the only Trill on board. There's no option. This is what happens when you get joined, from what I've read, until it goes, yeah, you'll remember what the others did.
But she does say, though, that she went to the Trill homeworld and they said, well, didn't the Guardians help you? And it sounds like they just sort of went, well, it's too late now. We usually do years getting you ready for it. But nope, you're on your own.
And well, that's kind of weird, like, because they've suggested before that if something abnormous like this happens, that they would stay on the home world to, like, basically stir in the goo while they learn how to be who they are.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, it's a bit of fudging. It's like they've got to fudge the idea of, like, previously it's been really clear you're not meant to reassociate with previous lives. Whereas now she says in an episode coming up, it's like, oh, well, that's not what they meant. It's like, it is. Like, it was clearly what they meant in previous episodes when they've said that, and now you want to retcon it because you want to have this new version of Daxon, which is fine. I think they've done the best version with it they could do. The only thing I think they really dropped the ball on a little bit is they sort of bring her in as being a counselor, as a sort of like almost a punchline to the fact that she's so scatty because this has been thrust upon her. Whereas they never really do anything with her being a counselor. It's like, if you're going to have that, why not?
Do a little bit, and we'll get to it with Nog and his PTSD. But that's
that one episode, I think it would have been nice if it almost like she healed herself through that.
Yeah, but it's that thing again, isn't it? It's like you've got a lot of story that has to be told, like we've been working on for 6 seasons in your final season, and you try to bring in a new character as well.
Well, that's the thing. That question is the logic of.
There's a limit to what you can do.
Yeah. As I say, they've done the best version they could. I think that's just one of the elements which kind of gets lost in the mix.
But that's the thing. It makes you wonder, did somebody mandate that you must include the next version of Dax? Because you don't necessarily have to do that.
Like it makes you wonder if the studio bosses went, no, we want Dax back, but we killed him.
Maybe.
I think it does,
because we all know that it was what's his name? Burnham, who sort of like pulled the plug on Jadzia.
Allegedly.
Well, that's why
Allegedly.
I think piecing everything together.
And I think, and it's probably you've got somebody at the high up at the studio has gone, look, we love Dax, we want Dax back. But we killed it. Sort it.
I think it was more a kind of case of blended with like the way the studio, because the studio didn't really do anything for her. Berman, I think by all accounts, it sounds like he was kind of instrumental in her going. And like they just didn't want to pay her the same as they were paying everyone else. They treated like shit. So they've written her out, but I think they still want to use Dax all over. I think Berman still wanted to use Dax. I think he just thought, oh, fuck it, she's replaceable, which is not true at all. And unfortunately, Nicole DeBerg gets kind of like fucked around in the mix of that, but again, she's done the best job she can do. The writer's done the best job they can do. It's just it was a situation that never should have been, or if they were going to kill her off, just kill her off. Don't include that character. There's no reason.
Like you said, we could have had an interesting thing where Romulans did establish on the base on DS9 for the whole season, and
you open up so much more space. There's so much more you've got to wrap up. Why chuck in something new that
you've got to try and do a full character arc with a new character from start to finish, and it's not going to carry the weight that you have for these characters that we've spent 7 years with by the time we get to it. But anyway, so you do get some fun stuff with her, like she doesn't like Raktajino, and it's like,
I like how she just automatically ordered it without thinking. And it's like, why have I ordered that? I keep doing these sort of things.
It's like, Jake, have you got taller? Oh, no, I've got shorter. That's quite nice.
That's a good moment. And then when they get to this planet, you've got this bit where Sisko's sort of trekking through the desert. Sorry, just before we get into that, just because it echoes that earlier scene in the first part with the guys going off the mission for Jadzia, you've got them coming together and goes like, you're going, we're coming with you. Again, it kind of just echoes that thing of it being all about, this is why they care about each other. This is why it'll be so important later. Sorry, as you were, mate. And it's good, like, when you get Sisko calling her old man, like it's that, I'll accept you as Dax, even though... And that buoys him on. That is a nice idea to buoy him on, the fact that Dax is back in some form. Yeah, it gives him a lift when he needs it. But this is...
But he had been saying in the first episode, I wish Jadzia was here. She always give me good advice in situations. So he's really, like you say, he's buoyed up because Dax is back. It might not be Jadzia, but he trusts Dax.
And it's
Oh, we lost you.
Jim's buffering. And that isn't a metaphor for anyone listening on audio. He's not buffering himself, just the internet.
No, I think we might have lost him.
Well, yeah. Okay, well, while we're waiting, so I forgot where I was going to go with that one, but yeah, it's sorry, go on.
I was off to say because he was in mid-speech. We were saying I was saying how Cisco is buoyed up because he trusts Dax. It doesn't matter that he doesn't know who Ezri is. This is the third Dax he's known and he is always trusted.
Yeah, and it's like they did weave in very nicely that Dax being there leads into the conclusion of like when he is there on the planet. I know I'm kind of skipping ahead a bit, but it's because Dax says like she's the one who's saying to him, "Oh, have we lost you, Elliot?"
It's streaming. Mine's gone. No, it's back.
I was going to say you froze for just a second there, but yeah, it's like, I mean, yeah, Dax does lead into the final moment when he's kind of like making the moment with, making his decision with the orb.
Yeah,
it is nice, like a nice moment. She's the one who kind of like holds hand and goes like, "No, you did all this. Jadzia did all this just to get to this moment." And it's also kind of nice that it's like he gets his own orb. Like we haven't really talked about that either.
Like,
the orb of the
I like the part where Ezri's when they are going through a desert and Ezri's like trudging along behind him and struggling to keep up, and she goes, "No, we might need to take a break. Your dad," and all that is behind him, and she shouts, "You okay, Dad?" "Yeah, carry on, son."
Oh, can we also check in, because we didn't really mention it? I also love the fact that this is what Star Trek allows you to do because it's so far in the future. When Cisco gets stabbed, which kind of leads him into the visions and stuff, it's really nice that it's like, because we're in Star Trek times, he can just get stabbed like really quite fatally, and then because they just dermal regenerators, he can be okay in the next scene. It allows you to kind of have that slight jeopardy, but you can just get on with the episode.
Well,
whereas in other films and stuff, you have people getting stabbed up. It's like it's set now and they've just got a couple of bandages on and they're just running through anywhere.
It's that thing, you do know that Cisco is going to be all right at this, that he's not going to be injured.
Yeah.
Well, he's injured, but he's going to get better.
It's a power of being set in the future. You get away with stuff like that. I also think it's like, because I mentioned this before, it's kind of interesting that Starfleet are very, I think it's Cisco can just get away with anything. But I love the fact that it's like when they come to stuff like going off with some comm badges and Starfleet regulation uniforms, he's just handing out to his family.
Well, didn't you think that was weird that they had the exact size for them, but in different command ranks? So, like, Cisco's obviously in his captain one.
Yeah.
Ezri has this blue one for medical, but JK gets the science, and he gives the commander's one to his dad. He made his dad the commander.
I'm saying it's replicators. You got to have some fun with this. The future technology excuses so many.
I just thought it was a nice little touch that he's gone to the effort that, I might not be able to make him anything really, but I'm going to make my dad is the commander.
Also, the other thing, I didn't really get around to looking it up, but there is a kind of parallel here between the famous Buffy episode where she ends up in the asylum, and at the end of the episode, you don't know if like the real world's the real world or her and the asylum's real world. Well, I don't know which came first, and it might just be parallel writing, but it's kind of interesting.
This is playing back to what we saw in Far Beyond the Stars.
But in Far Beyond the Stars, it doesn't feel like that Buffy episode. It feels like its own thing where he goes into this other world, and it is, of course, it is playing with like which one's the real world. However, in this one, it seems like a direct parallel to that Buffy episode. And again, I don't know which happened first. I'm sure it's just parallel thinking. No one's copying anyone, but it kind of feels very homage-like to each other.
I lost you there.
I was just saying about like it feels like a parallel to each other.
Yeah, they do seem very similar, but I don't think we're copying. And I think it's very clever here, this part in the asylum. And I thought it was really clever in Beyond the Stars, where it's and he's writing about DS9, and he's writing it as a script.
And we
no, it's obvious that this is the real thing. You're writing a script.
And also, it's like the hunky, like Damar in real life. I met him like a few years later, but geez, he was quite a cut man, Damar in real life. I'm going to forget his name now. What's the name of the actor? Do you remember
It's Casey Briggs. Casey Briggs.
God, man, did that guy look handsome? Like, not saying he doesn't now or anything, but just, yeah, particularly. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Facebook user Casey Briggs. Yeah.
I was about to say, Facebook user, you are right about the Power Race hijacking his visions, because they have hijacked his visions.
Yeah.
That's why he's in the mental asylum.
Oh, and Casey Briggs married to Balana. I didn't know that. Thank you very much.
All right.
Nice. Yeah, so yeah, we've opened the orb, and yeah, I love the kind of like it is that setup of like it does feel like where unfortunately oh god, I'm gonna forget, like Far Beyond the Stars character version of Cisco.
Well, it was the same. It's that's where we last saw him in Benny.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, it feels like he would have probably ended up getting locked in a mental asylum like this, treated like absolute crap. But he never lets go of the vision, which is what's so lovely, It's like Cisco, no matter which world he's in, no matter which person he's being, he's always true to himself. But he has that moment of doubt, and it is really kind of like this Jesus in the desert, It's like it's that moment of like the last temptation. And it's only because his friend holds his arm and goes, "No, we fought for this. We've all done this for a reason. You've got to see it through," and that empowers him, and that does give like the best launch for this version of Dax, even if you haven't got enough time to really realize her in the way you want to. Hey, welcome back, Jim.
Hello, that was me, Facebook user, who was giving you bits. That might be how I'd have to do the rest of the episode, because I don't know what's going on with my internet. But
helping behind the scenes, even then.
Oh no, you're not with Virgin, are you anymore?
No.
See, this is what our captain does. Even when he can't come on screen, he's still steering the ship.
But no, I think you guys have been covered. The only thing I was going to say is about where you get that scene at first in the desert, and Cisco's sort of barreling ahead, and Dax has to go, you know your dad's knackered, and he's trying to keep up with it, and Cisco's just like, fine, yeah, we've got important things to do.
I did actually mention it, and he shouts back to his dad, "Are you okay, Dad?" And he goes, "Yes, son, carry on."
Yeah, but he's nearly falling over while he's saying...
Yeah, but he knows how important it is to Ben. That's the point.
The only thing I will say is it's kind of like brushed over when you do have the orb experience and he meets his mum, and it's kind of like, "Hey son, yeah, I did do that." Oh well, he's going, "Yeah, but you robbed her life. What are you gonna do?" And that's about it. It's like, it's almost like that seems a little bit rushed to me. Was it just me feeling that?
Now, my question is, when we get that scene with Benny Russell again,
Russell, that was it.
Do you read that as the original vision was the prophets and the Power Raids have hijacked it, as I suggested? Or could it be that the whole vision was from the Power Raids designed to lock Benny up? And I think this is where he's at.
I think when you look at this, because this is obviously the Power Raids hijacking his visions to stop him opening the orbs. So that makes you think that the whole thing in Far Beyond the Stars was probably the Power Wraiths attacking him.
Yeah, I wonder.
I'm going to add to that. I think that in the world of the orbs, it's almost like they both exist. It's I compared it to the Last Temptation of Christ a minute ago, and I think that's it. I think there's like the devil is there in the Power Wraiths, that they're tempting him, but like the prophets can still talk to him, and his friends can talk to him and bolster him. So it's like I think it's they're in a kind of like, it's almost like they're locked. That's why his hands locked there. It's only when Ezra tilts the scales towards positivity, towards the light, that he kind of breaks out.
Yeah.
So I think they're both there. I think it is both in both situations.
It's a bold bit of writing as well to go, let's revisit an episode that is regarded as one of our very, very, very best episodes. Yeah. And even though it's dripping with the lore of the prophets and everything. It is more or less a standalone episode, and the fact that they're brave enough to go, let's revisit that and add a little coda onto it, and that it works and it doesn't devalue what's gone before, and yet it works perfectly within this episode. And one thing you were saying there, Squee, while I was having technical difficulties about the Buffy episode, and it finishes. The Buffy episode finishes in the world that has the asylum, and it finishes with them saying, "Oh, we've lost her again. She's gone back to the fantasy." And it was originally considered by the writers to finish all of Deep Space Nine with Benny Russell typing up the ending.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
But they
I
said they didn't want to do it because that would leave you coming out of the whole show going, well, are we supposed to think it didn't happen? Or
it's a nice idea, but in retrospect, because of the wider franchise, if it was just one show, DS9, and there was no Star Trek franchise, okay, if you were to do that. But when you're part of a huge franchise, where this was the third day iteration, but we already had the fourth running, and by the time it ended, they were planning the fifth.
Yeah.
So to sort of go, no, this one didn't really happen. It's sort of like, well, what about the rest of them then?
Well,
and what about the crossovers that you've done?
I don't think it even says that. I think it leaves ambiguity. And for me, I think, and again, this is just my sort of like, I think it's as valid as any answer to it, basically. But I think, like Benny Russell and all that exists in another dimension. It's like, because like these wormhole prophets, they're beyond time, they're beyond space. Why not beyond reality? So, you know, there's a reality where that was his existence, was as Benjamin Russell. I think he kind of crosses over to himself in another dimension.
Oh,
and I kind of like the idea that it all exists, which is maybe a new way of thinking. Like now, multiverse everywhere, but I feel like that connects with
there's
with
no
Benny Russell's existence.
There's no reason not to, but I don't get that from it.
I've never thought of Benny Russell as existing. I've always thought of it as a metaphor that the prophets or the Pirates or both present him with.
I think when you look at it now, like season 6, season 7 especially, where the Pirates have come to a forefront as the sort of bad side of the prophets. So they've got an equal bad side. It makes a lot of sense that it was actually them who had a lot to do with him having them visions in Far Beyond the Stars, trying to trap him and break him from out of the prophecy that the prophets need him to fulfill.
I mean, for me,
without Cisco, the Pirates would win.
I think for me, it's the fact that there's like, you know, he is now a wormhole alien. He has now got that ability to live in a non-linear way. So why not have a kind of past life or a life in another dimension? Like it feels like it could connect in. Again, it's just my theory. It's
no, exactly, and there's enough there for you to run with it. Absolutely. We've not talked a lot about the Kira story. But to be honest, I don't think there's a lot of meat on the bones of that. Really.
We did stick to where we were and wait for you to get back in a way so that we could talk about the other. Because there's two other stories.
The one thing I wanted to... Sorry, go on, Jim.
Go on. No, I was just going to say with the Kira one, it's good stuff, and it's, you know, a bit of a showcase for the Kira character, but there's not a huge amount to it. It's just basically escalates and becomes this game of bluff between Kira and the Romulan, and eventually the Romulan blinks.
Yeah, the reality is like Kira knows that she cannot beat the Romulans in a fight. That she's got however many ships, just one Romulan warbird will wipe them out. Like that. No, it won't even be a battle. It'll be target practice for the Romulans.
Yeah.
And Kira's aware of this, but there's the bigger political part of it, where will the Romulans attack the Bajorans, who the Federation don't want to be attacked. They're not part of the Federation, but the Federation, are the Federation going to allow this to happen? And are the Federation going to allow the Romulans to establish a military base by the wormhole or DS9?
Well, the thing which kind of like doesn't sit well with me with this plot is, I mean, I think it's a wonderful showcase for Kira, and I think it really shows her, like, you know, she's always been a ballsy guerrilla fighter, and that shows here. But right from the beginning, for some reason, and it's not really explained or touched upon why Admiral Ross is on the Romulan side. Basically, that's sovereign. So let me just go through it a bit. But like, you've got sovereign Bajoran territory. The Bajorans have said, right, if you're arming this planet, we don't want you on it, like this moon. That's their right. And it's like, it doesn't fit. So I would have sort of liked, what I was kind of alluding to earlier was, I would have liked a bit of kind of establishment of like, maybe even them saying, like, Admiral Ross could have just done it in one line, just saying it's like, talking to one of the other Federation members on Deep Space Nine, just saying it's like, well, why are you being so hardcore on this? Well, to be honest with you, the Federation's a bit unhappy with how much in bed with the Bajorans that Sisko's been. As much as we support them, we want, like, you know, to include the Romulans because they're our new ally and they're really important to the war effort. It just doesn't seem to be very well explored why he's so on their side. Whereas surely, naturally, wouldn't the Federation be on the Bajoran side? It
is explained, and it's basically explained that they can't afford not to have the Romulans with them in the war. So they have to. So he's doing, and he says
very lightly got into.
It isn't. He says I've done a diplomatic thing, and he explains to Kira. He goes, look, I've sent off my diplomatic. We've sent off diplomatic protests. The Romulans have replied with a protest, and he goes, this will go on for months. With this, the Romulans will eventually pull back the weapons. But we can't afford to get involved military-wise because we need the Romulans to help us in this war. And he says it.
No, but he doesn't. He doesn't cover at all why, like, the Bajorans can't, as a sovereign nation, protect their own land. Like, I don't think that
they have got the right to protect their own land. The problem is that they haven't got the firepower to protect their own land against the Romulans. That's the issue.
What I'm saying is, though,
the Federation won't back them up. That's what the issue is.
But there's a difference between not backing them up and basically being up the arse of the Romulans, which he is. He's sat next to her, basically backing every play he makes right until the end. I think that doesn't work well with the Federation.
I can see both sides of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your argument, Elliot. You know, I think both are valid. It just doesn't, like any other episode of Star Trek, the Federation would not just go, well, yeah, but we like the Romulans, so screw you. You know, it feels like...
He isn't saying he likes the Romulans. What he's saying is that the Federation needs the Romulans in the war because the Federation was getting its ass absolutely annihilated and we're going to lose the war until the Romulans joined. He can't afford for the Romulans to pull
And ultimately, he doesn't allow the Romulans to destroy the Bajorans.
Only once Kira's put her balls online, it's just...
I think he thought Kira had backed down as well, but...
what he wanted was to solve it the diplomatic way, which he said will take months, but eventually the Romulans will withdraw.
Just let them do it.
But it's going to take months. But Kira, being Kira, went through it, and he was thinking, no, she's going to back down once the warbirds arrive because he knows as well as she does that their ships are not adequate in any way, shape, or form to deal with the Romulans. They haven't got the firepower. He can't provide firepower for diplomatic reasons. His hands are tied.
I guess
eventually he does go, look, Kira isn't backing down. I am not going to allow you to attack them. I will remove you if you think about this.
I mean, I guess it's just he gives that thing about, like, you know, why the Bajorans are so militarily important, and I appreciate that. But it's like he doesn't seem to struggle with it. He just seems to go straight to the Romulan. I think it would have been nice to see him trying to do more, trying to kind of make it work. Whereas just going like, yeah, well, the Bajorans will back down eventually. It just seems very unstuffy to me. I don't know. I would like to have seen some more struggle.
Yeah, but that, like I said, the point is that it's all diplomatic, and we've dealt with that all last season. Why they need the Romulans? So in a way, his hands are tied. That he's having to almost fawn over them where normally he would, what
Yeah.
he would do,
You've
which
done
is
that
what he
very
does in
nicely
the
in other
end.
episodes. You've done that very nicely in other episodes where Picard struggled with that, and he knows he has to do stuff for the good of the Federation as a whole, but he struggles with stuff, and I don't feel like there was any struggles. It's just maybe it was because it was a B plot, and it was just a bit.
Well, this is almost a C plot.
Yeah, I feel like it could have done with another scene really to punch it up and to really
possibly, but I didn't think it needed it. I got what it was doing.
Meanwhile, with Worf and Martok and everything, we get a really nice scene there where they do confront Worf about his attitude, and he admits to being almost jealous that Jadzia had these relationships with other people, but then he finishes that scene by saying that he's glad they're there, which I think is that's a big thing for Worf to say.
And this one actually, this one is where less is more is great, because like Martok only has to say it's like, hey, you're being a dick, and basically that's it. He says like a couple of lines, but that's all Klingons need.
Yeah, but like this whole thing starts with him turning around and going, you should be thanking me for letting you be here. No.
But I always like it when they allow Worf. He doesn't sell out being a warrior at all, but he kind of admits to kind of frailty, admits to kind of like, like it's almost like his battle between his human side and his Klingon side. Even though he's Klingon, he's raised by humans, and that comes out like in moments like
one thing I did notice.
There's also, I was about to say, there's a side. There's the thing about Worf that I've always thought why Worf's different to what you see a lot of other Klingons is because Worf was raised by humans. He's read what Klingons are like.
Yeah.
And he's developed how his personality should be from what he's read in books, as opposed to growing up with other Klingons. And no, they're not really staunch. They're really funny, and they drink and they carry on.
Jadzia says that earlier on. He's like, I met some Klingons who were like, I laughed my ass off. But I also think it's almost like, because he knows he has got this human side from how he was raised, he goes to the nth degree of Klingon, like, which is beyond what Klingons are actually like. It's just the almost like the stereotype. It's like what he's read, but it's also what he understands of it. Yeah,
it's almost like it's almost like he feels dishonored because he was raised by humans. That he's gone to the level to be the ultimate Klingon. I am going to be exactly what Klingons are meant to be.
Sorry, Willow's saying she's a Klingon warrior. I'm sorry, she's got a thing about this. I don't know.
One thing I did notice is when they first fire the weapon, Martok says like fire on Worf's command, and they make a big thing about Worf giving the order because it's him that's going to win the battle and get Jadzia into Stovecar. Then it doesn't work, and they have to realign it and fire again. And Martok gives the order to fire when it actually works, which I felt a bit bad on Worf there. And then Worf sort of jumps in and goes, "Get us out, full impulse." And it's like, does that really count as winning the battle, Worf, ordering the escape?
Isn't that playing into the theme, though? The whole idea that it's like, it's not just about him.
It's not just him
and all of Jadzia's friends and all of his friends working together to get Jadzia and stuff.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
I'm with you on this, Ian, that it works.
Yeah.
It can't be just Worf. It needed all of them to do something.
Now,
so it makes a difference to his outlook. I like that. Yeah.
Let's talk about Jadzia, though. So Jadzia is happy in Trill Heaven, which I imagine involves lots of shagging, and then all of a sudden, Worf wins a battle, and suddenly she's in bloody Stovecar with all these Klingon warriors.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think being surrounded by a lot of Klingon warriors was right up Dax's alley. Like she was up for a good time, drinking the blood wine. Like they even say about Quarks. They compare it to Quarks goes like on a Friday night. It's like drinking and kind of like shouting, and it's like I think she was down for that. Like when she chose to be House Martok, I think she was down for the Klingon way of life, because it's like she is bawdy, she is kind of a warrior, she's very kind of physical in every sense.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe I'm just projecting. I would rather go to Trill Heaven than Klingon Heaven, but maybe Dax wouldn't. So
I think Dax wouldn't. I would be more than
And
happy with Trill or Rise of Heaven would be ideal.
And it has been well established that not just Jadzia, but we also have Curzon was heavily involved with the Klingons.
True.
The Dax symbiont has a history of being heavily
The Dax
involved with
symbiont
Klingon.
certainly does, yeah.
Of being involved with Klingon culture.
Hand me my Horgon and send me to Rise of Heaven, I'd be happy, but not Dax. She was a glorious warrior.
Yeah.
And we get sorry, go on.
Oh, just very quickly, I was just going to say, it's like, and I love the fact that they always showed her as a sexual person without making it kind of like icky and kind of like disempowering. It was always empowering her sexuality. She was always like, yes, we will drink, we will fuck, we will fight. You know, it's like, it was very Klingon. And that's how she was. It was great, yeah.
And just to shout out to like how well the episode is edited and handles the 3 plot strands, it's almost like I know George Lucas gets a lot of flack for his directing, particularly in later years, but like if you look at something like the end of Return of the Jedi or even the end of The Phantom Menace, they're really well edited, how they've got all these different plot strands going on and it all goes wrong for them at the same time. Then you get everybody comes back and wins at the same time, and you get that in this.
Well, this is all very much the Romulans are about to blow Kira out of the sky. They're just going to go. They're not even going to slow down. They've sped up. They've got there faster than expected. They're not even going to slow down through it. They're just going to go straight through. You've got Worf goes to fire to destroy this station, and it fails. And it's all while Sisko's struggling to open the orb.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
As soon as he opens the orb, the look changes of the Alpha Quadrant.
And how does everything come together? Every one of these things pays off because of their friends, because the people who are around them. Like Kira may be doing this on her own, but she's emboldened by having Odo there.
But
like by having the person she cares.
I was about to say, this takes us back to what we said at the beginning. This is Odo and Kira being natural. They're a couple. You can see they're a couple, but there's no silly one-liners or anything. Yeah. They're just a couple, and he's there supporting the love of his life.
Well,
and it works. And it works.
This is a thing that something I heard on like a storytelling podcast was one of the ways you write a good couple is rather than trying to write all this romantic dialogue and whatnot, you have something, a common interest. You know, in this case, it's a battle situation, but it could be anything. You have something that they both care about and are both good at, and you show them being good at that together. And that's a good way of showing a bond between two characters. And that's what they're doing here. And this works much better than having them going, wow, what a kiss.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the whole thing where she's there going and he goes, right, I'll get ready to go. And it's like, you don't have to come. And he goes, yes, I do.
Yeah.
It's important to you. Yes, I am coming.
Yeah, which is, again, which is the real theme of this whole episode. It's important to you, so I'm going to be there with you.
And the thing is, Odo consciously has made the choice that he wears Bajoran. He wears a Bajoran uniform.
That's very true.
We know he's not Bajoran. We know he's a changeling. But he identifies as being from Bajor.
Yeah, he's adopted Bajoran culture, at least.
Well, I don't know if he's I don't know if he can go culture because he's quite happy to go break up religious ceremonies.
Well, true.
Doesn't this throw in the same thing though as we were saying earlier? It's like it's about he includes his. It's not like he doesn't care about his original, like where he comes from. He's always trying to make peace with that, but his adoptive family matters to him. Like that's what's important. Bajor gave him everything, and that matters to him. But he will always serve the law first. Like that's just him. But I think just it doesn't outstrike the fact that he loves Bajor, that that's his home, you know.
And he's quite happy to go support him. This Kira is the love of his life. I will come support you. And you see it, and they look like a couple together. But there's none of the stupid, oh, what a great kiss that was 3 months ago. And
yeah, agreed.
You don't need it.
You see, what would be
to work.
What would be much more believable is if in 6 episodes' time, Odo said something to Kira along the lines of, like that time you stared down that Romulan, and you'd believe, if he said that in a way that, was kind of, you could tell he were proud of her and impressed by her, and maybe it made him feel a bit sexy, who knows?
Yeah.
But you could believe that as an interaction that they would reminisce about something like this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Cisco, he meets Sarah, his mum, the prophet. The wormhole's reopened and Cisco's reinvigorated, and the episode wraps up pretty quickly from there. Like, we get, the back at the station. Welcome back, everyone. Who's this? That's Dax. Let's go.
And that's it. But there's a lovely, like, everyone's interactions. It's like there's people excited, and then there's Worf going, it's like, it cannot be, which sets up him being hostile towards the new Dax.
Yeah.
It's nicely done, yeah.
There's a nice little Wayun and Damar moment in this episode. And it's when they're talking about what's happening at the shipyard. And it's like how they're planning that they have to do enough massively wipe out the Alpha Quadrant. And Damar's there with his new girlfriend that he's obviously picked up at some party the night before. And she's there in the drinking together and he's having a laugh and showing off there. This is where I work, baby. I'm head of the cat. I'm head of Cardassia. And Wayun comes in and goes, he's introduced and he goes, you need to leave now. And Damar's sort of like, why? Because I need to talk to her, and if she doesn't leave, I'll have to kill her.
Yeah.
And it's just, you better go now. And I just thought that was like, Wayun is like, okay, you've done your bragging. I've let it go, but now we've got stuff to do. She goes. And I'm in charge, and I'm telling you what will happen if she doesn't.
Yeah, overall, it's a very strong opener to the season, I feel.
It is one of those, and I found that watching the first episode, I know there's a lot of character-driven, and if we look back at like the first episodes of the new seasons, maybe not so much season 2, season 3, but we've had fights and big battles and fast episodes. And the first episode of this feels quite slow when you're watching it.
It does.
It is all character. There's no action. It's very brave. But you watch the two of them together and suddenly you've got this great TV movie.
Yeah, it's so pacey. It's not about the space battles. It's about the human drama.
Yeah.
About how that informs everything else that happens. It's just such a brave and great series opener, the 2-part, like you say, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work as if you just watch the first episode on its own. And I can't remember. I think I actually watched them probably as 2 episodes because I didn't watch all of DS9 when it first came out.
And I used to watch them on the VHSs, which was 2 episodes together. That was the earliest I could get them.
That's why,
And I think they were actually on video first, maybe? I can't remember.
Well, DS9 went to... did we get all DS9 on BBC Two? We did, didn't we?
Eventually. It showed on Sky first.
It showed on Sky first, which was like the first one. Oh, no, boy. Yeah, it was the first one that showed on Sky first.
What Sky did was they waited until they could show it all in one go. So they usually it didn't start until after the mid-season hiatus in America.
Mid-season, it wasn't right at the end of the season.
So the VHSs of the early parts of the season were out months before Sky started showing it, and then they'd catch up and line up with each other by the end of the seasons. The VHSs, the turnover on them was unbelievable, really. Like, I don't know what night DS9 aired in America, but every 2 weeks they would bring out the VHSs over here, and it was literally, if it aired on the Thursday, we got it the next Tuesday on VHS,
really
something
quick.
like
and
that.
It was to the point, like you're saying, that if there was a break, then we'd have to wait 2 weeks for the next.
I think DS9 is the first one that they picked up on. Let's get these straight out on video.
I think also
because there's a delay in when they can see them in the countries that people
Exactly.
will buy them.
And I think you could trace that to I think you could trace that to the rise of the internet and file sharing as well. And they thought, we need to get these out because people are discovering other ways of
Napster
accessing
was
these
starting about then.
programs now.
Yeah, I think it was like satellite TV was starting to pop up and
yeah. And I mean, I didn't have the technology to download an episode of DS9, but some people did, is what I will say. But so they offset that by having the VHSs
very
out
quickly.
And I mean, I don't want to brag, but like, you know, WH Smith's in Romsey, where I got the like this large video case here from, they used to, because I knew the staff there, if it came on like over the weekend, the VHS would come in. And yeah, maybe sometimes they sold to me before release day. I got it like 2 days earlier than the rest of the country.
I did queue in HMV to buy the Emissary on its first release because it came out in a special collector's box.
Yes.
And
you opened up a booklet as the video sleeve. Yeah.
I actually queued to buy the VHS tape.
Yeah, I go in there on Saturday.
Which is bad when you think about it now. It's worse.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it now, we complain that when there's a new episode of Lower Decks, we don't get it until 9 o'clock the next morning instead of at midnight. You know, that's how much the world has changed.
Could you think of now in any store, like even at the time it was just before they started really clamping down, but it's like, can you imagine any store to have the power to like give it out to someone 2 days early? That would have shown up on the till and probably alerted security for for WH Smiths everywhere, you know.
Without question.
TNG was shown on BBC Two, and I think it was about 6 months behind America. And that was really fast that we were seeing TNG.
Yeah. So we'll wrap up there then. Next week, the next 2 episodes are Treachery, Faith, and the Great River, and The Siege of AR 558.
Ooh.
Catchy
Which
title.
episode numbers are they?
I'm not sure which episode numbers. I know there is a little bit of a break because there's a few Esri episodes.
There's the O'Brien on Orion episode, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. O'Brien on Orion. You've heard of Elf on the Shelf?
Yeah.
We can have O'Brien on Orion. That's an episode that we should cover at some point because it's very, very strange why O'Brien was the guy.
There are two Orion Syndicate O'Brien episodes, so maybe we'll do them as a double bill.
Yeah, that's another time.
Absolutely. So that's what we're coming back with next week. In the meantime, you can get in touch with us, RetrekPod, at RetrekPod. You can email us, retrekpod@gmail.com. You can find us on all the different socials, including Retrek Model Studios, where Elliot is currently working on.
Right, since we were last gone, I've actually had quite a lot of content hit the channel. So we had the Christmas Day Hobbylink International Open the Box, my Secret Santa present, which James kindly videoed me opening.
Camera work on that one.
It was my Grogo, so that's gone into the stash pile. 2 videos went out between Christmas and New Year because I did a speed build. I did the Titan Terrorfish from Stingray. Another 2 videos have gone out so far this year because I'm doing a nostalgia build of a kit and equipment that I've had when I was 10 years old. And that's maybe going to finish this weekend, maybe run into next week. And then we'll be getting back to the Impaler. And if you aren't subscribed, do subscribe because I'm very, very close to hitting 500 subscribers. I'm 7 short, so that's going to happen in next week, maybe 2. And there will be a giveaway on the channel with 500 subscribers.
Oh.
And amazing builds. They're amazing. Yeah, you want to be subscribed anyway.
And Dr. Squee, what have we got going on?
Very quickly, basically, Dr. Squee Show is no longer a radio show, just because I wanted to concentrate on the video show going forward. So starting soon, I'm trying to line up a few interviews. It's going to be every Thursday at 7:00 is the idea. So previously, I've just done interviews as and when people are available. Kind of the reason why I wanted to can the radio show, as much fun as it was I could concentrate on the video version. We could have it coming out on the same day each week. People can't make it on Thursday. I'll just pre-record. So yeah, coming soon is all I can say. We're going to have some brand new guests, 7:00 every Thursday. So I can build up a bit of an audience that way. So yeah, please tune in.
Fantastic. And thanks for trekking with us this time. We will see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Goodbye.
LLAP and drag off 2024. Woo! We're back.
Fascinating.
What's that you say, Willow? She says Kapla. Apparently she just got Dottie into Klingon heaven.
Excellent.
Well done. We started